Hello everyone and welcome back to another VASAviation video. Today I want to talk about the crash in San Diego yesterday with the Cessna Citation 550, November 666 Delta Sierra. I know there are other channels that do this better than I do, but I want to give my opinion and I want to go through some of the details and also explain how to read and understand the radar scope visuals that we usually have in VASAviation. We'll go through the weather, we'll go through the approach blades and the equipment on board the aircraft. I am a Cessna Citation pilot. I am, however, not rated in the 550, but I am rated in the 560 and all the variants. So 560, XL, XLS, and XLS Plus. The rest is for the investigators. They are NTSB and FAA are on scene, and hopefully we'll have a preliminary report very soon, so we can all learn from this accident as always.
SoCal Citation 666 Delta Sierra with you. Descending through 17,000 for 12,000.
Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the radar scope so you can understand what information is on the screen. We have here two airplanes. We have a LAE, Lima Alpha Echo 1828 on the left, and we have November 666 Delta Sierra here on the right. So the first line, these two lines, we call it a data block on the radar scope, so we have some information on the airplanes. The first line is the call sign. For the left plane, the plane on the left is LAN Ecuador 1828, probably coming into Los Angeles, and then we have our airplane November 666 Delta Sierra. The pilot just checked in saying he was through 17,000. Now this part of the video is not in synchronization, so we have the airplane a little below that altitude because I started recording the radar scope a little later than 17,000. So we have a 167 on the second line of the data block there. That means that the airplane is going through 16,700 feet. For the LAN Ecuador plane, we have 159, which is 15,900 feet altitude. The next, which we have UNK, that is because we take ADSB data from airplanes.live. They collaborate with us, we collaborate with them, and they share their ADSB data for us so we can use it on our videos. Now the problem with this aircraft is that this aircraft was not registered in their database. So the system doesn't recognize the aircraft type for this particular flight. So that's why we have UNK, that's for unknown, for the aircraft type on the data block. However, for the LAN Ecuador plane, we have B763, which means that aircraft is a Boeing 767-300.
Carroll approach. The Montgomery ASOS is out of service. Which approach would you like?
So again, for the next blink of the data block, now we have 165, so indeed they are descending. Now it's 16,500 feet. We have the ground speed right there, which is 33, which means 330 knots of ground speed. And again, I say again, this is ground speed, not indicated airspeed. And then we have a U, which is the wake category, wake turbulence category. And again, since the system doesn't recognize the actual aircraft type, it doesn't recognize the actual wake turbulence category. So we have a U for unknown again. The controller just told the pilots that the Montgomery ASOS, the weather report, the equipment that sends out the weather reports is out of service. So we don't know the exact weather at Montgomery Airport at that time. We don't know. Now the pilot will talk about Gillespie, which is an airport which is nearby Montgomery. He knows that weather. Then the controller will tell the weather in Miramar, which is a few miles north of Montgomery as well. The pilot will ask for the weather in Brownfield, which is a few miles south of San Diego. However, they never considered, or the pilot never asked for, and the controller never suggested weather for San Diego, which we will talk about in a few minutes, because the weather in San Diego International Airport, which was much better than anywhere else.
Yeah, 602, yeah, we noticed that. Take the RNAV 28, please. 6 Delta Sierra, clear direct Nesty, descend pilot discretion, maintain 9,000.
The pilot requests the RNAV approach for runway 28. There are two types of approach for this runway, which is RNAV and ILS, and they are clear direct to the Nesty intersection. That's a waypoint for the approach, and they requested the RNAV. Here we have the approach plates for both approaches here. I wanted to share both approaches, even though they just require the RNAV approach, just to give you information on both approaches, and they're pretty much the same approach, just with a few differences here and there, especially the minimums, but it's pretty much the same approach. And they are proceeding direct to Nesty, which you should cross Nesty at 3,600 feet. So here we have November 666 Delta Sierra approaching Nesty. You can see Nesty right there on the radar scope, and since there are many lines here and there going that way or going the other way on the radar scope maps, I point out the three main airports close to Montgomery. I mean, Montgomery is MYF that you have right there. Then we have Miramar, a few miles to the north, and then we have Gillespie, a few miles to the east northeast. San Diego is right south of Montgomery, not on screen, but it's just right south of Montgomery Airport. For the radar, I showed the waypoints. So you have Nesty right there in front of the aircraft. Then we have Penny and we have Palos, which are the three waypoints on the RNAV approach for a runway 28 right at Montgomery. Remember, Nesty was to be crossed at 3,600 feet or above, but if you can cross at that altitude, you will be just right on the glide path for the approach. So here they are approaching Nesty.
Yeah, I've got the numbers. 602, roger that, and frequency change approved. 602, thanks. We'll hopefully not see you, but we might have to. Okay.
So there you go, they're just cutting off the corner for Nesty. It's not an overfly waypoint, so you can just cut off the corner, the turn, and join the final approach course. Right now they're kind of abeam the waypoint, and we can see on the data block, remember what we talked about, they're showing 038, and that's for 3,800 feet, and that's the actual altitude of the aircraft. Now I want to talk about the altimeter setting, because two things about this topic. First of all, our radar scope is corrected for altimeter setting. So it's not the pressure altitude, uncorrected pressure altitude. That is the altitude displayed with a pressure or altimeter of 2992 in the United States or 1013 in Europe, for example. So the altitude on our scope is corrected for altimeter. Now, for what altimeter? Because we don't have any weather for Montgomery. So actually, we didn't hear any altimeter settings set by this ATC to the pilot. Maybe they said earlier on another frequency that we didn't have on video, or we didn't have recorded on audio. We don't know. But we don't know the altimeter setting for Montgomery. Anyway, our radar scope takes the altimeter setting for the primary airport of that area, and this area is San Diego area within the Los Angeles TRACON. So our software or our program takes the altimeter from San Diego and corrects their altitude to that altimeter setting. That makes sense. So we're showing 3,800 feet, but again, we don't know the altimeter setting that they have on board. Anyway, we're showing the aircraft at 3,800 feet crossing Nesty. That sounds about right. We saw that we wanted to cross an ST at 3,600 feet, and we're showing the aircraft 38. That's about right. We're going on the final approach course.
Citation 666 Delta Sierra, 3 miles, final 28.
Okay, one important thing here. Let me just do it again.
Traffic.
So this call out on 3 miles is not in synchronization with the radar scope. 3 miles, if we go back to the approach place, 3 miles final for the RNAV28 ride would be around Palos. And we'll talk about Palos here in a second. But just for information, this communication is not in synchronization to with the radar scope. Just in case the pilot just indeed called a 3 mile final is not in synchronization with the radar.
Citation 666 Delta Sierra, 3 miles, final 28.
But right now at this point, and now disregard the communications because they might not be in synchronization with the radar again. But right at this point, the aircraft, here you go, at this point, they're right over Penny. And if we go back to the approach plate, you can see that Penny is to be crossed at 2,500 feet, which we have. Penny at 025, which means 2,500 feet. So yes, this aircraft at least looks like he's correctly following the glide path and not a glide slope. This is not a glide slope. Glide slope is for the ILS. This aircraft is following a glide path down to the runway for the RNAV. What's the difference for that, in case you don't know? The ILS is a ground signal, radio signal, that the aircraft identifies and follows a glide slope horizontally and vertically down to the runway. It's a radio signal. Now, the RNAV is completely different. The RNAV is a series of waypoints and crossover altitudes, and your FMS creates a virtual glide path down to the runway following those waypoints and those altitudes. It's not the same. The RNAV is an FMS or GPS based approach. So we have Penny at 2,500 feet. That's correct, and that's according to the approach plate. Next waypoint that we have to check is Palos. Let's listen to it again. That's 7 times pressing the PTT. The PTT is the button that you press to communicate on the radio. That's you press and you say hello ATC whatever 666 Delta Sierra on 3 miles final. So if you press that button 7 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you can turn on the runway lights and all the lights of the airport, the runway lights and the poppy lights, I think too. You can turn them on full brightness. So you press the PTT 7 times in a row. And he does it again. So in the next blink, we are right over Palos. And Palos, if you remember, now we have the aircraft at 1,200 feet, and Palos was to be overflown at 1,380 feet. So yeah, we can imagine that maybe this aircraft is below the glide path right now, maybe 200 feet below the glide path. We don't know the ceilings, we don't know the base of the cloud, but that's 1,200 feet doesn't seem right at Palos right now. A few miles past Palos, no further data, and the aircraft disappears off radar. Let's go back a few seconds again, because I want to talk about something. This blink right here, let me go again. We have a blink of 1,700 feet, and the next blink, which should be about, we have the update from 3 to 5 seconds, we have 1,500. We don't even have a readout on 1,600, so that's a jump from 1,700 to 1,500. That's quite a lot. Maybe they were on steep descent at that point. Let's go further. Because again, right there, I don't know if you saw it, if you realized, let's go again. We have a readout at 1,000 feet, and the next blink is 800 feet. Again, we don't have a readout at 900 feet. Maybe they were on a steep descent again, trying to go out the clouds, or some kind of control malfunction. We don't know. 700 feet, 500 feet, again, we don't have a readout on 600 feet for some reason. Maybe they are descending quite fast. And then after 500 feet again, we have a readout on 600 feet. So they're in a climb right now. So at this point, some of you are saying or are reading that maybe they struck some power lines. And at this point, the pilot noticed about he struck the power lines and pulled up again. We don't know, but that's quite interesting, that last short climb there, and the signal disappears. If you watch the original video that I have on this accident, you will see the weather at Gillespie was bad. The weather at Miramar, a few miles north of Montgomery, was bad. The weather at Brown, a few miles south of San Diego, was a little better, but again not enough to shoot an approach there. However, this pilot continued the approach to Montgomery, even not knowing the actual weather at Montgomery. Now, something that I did not realize, I realized while editing, but I didn't think about it to include it on the video. And some of you commented on the video about it, and it's, how is the weather in San Diego International? And you have it right here. This is the weather at 22 May 22nd at 10:16 Zulu time. San Diego wind was 130 degrees at 4 knots. Visibility was 9. Overcast clouds at 1,000 feet. If you go to any approach to San Diego, for example, the most used one is the RNAV to runway 27. You see the approach, you see the minimums, and indeed you have good weather to shoot an approach to San Diego International. Now, also I have here noted some of the comments, and many of you were asking if this type of airplanes are equipped with some kind of terrain alert, that when you're very close to the ground, it should shout out an alert to you, so that you know that you're approaching the ground. And also some people asking about the radio altimeter call-outs or information. So first, to the ground alerts, that's what we call the GPWS. It's the Ground Proximity Warning System. This aircraft is, don't remember quite well, but I think it was plus 40 years old. I don't know if it's equipped with a GPWS or some kind of terrain awareness system, but I would bet it is. So it's the alerts that it shouts pull up, terrain, etc. I would say this aircraft, Cessna Citation 550, even if it's old, it is equipped with GPWS. Also for the radio altimeter, again, I don't know if this aircraft is equipped with radio altimeter, but I guess. Also, I have to differentiate between the GPWS and radio altimeter. GPWS works with database. So it's a database installed in the aircraft with all the terrain of the world. So it compares your altitude with the database and just tells you if you are close to the ground. Now, for the radio altimeter, it is indeed a signal to the ground. Then back to the aircraft calculates how long it took to go to the ground and back, and it tells you how high you are from the ground. Radio altimeter usually works from 2,500 feet down to the ground, or 5 feet. In the Cessna Citation, at least the one I fly, we have radio altimeter. It becomes active at 2,500 feet, and the last readout is 5 feet. When you're just over the ground, it's 5 feet, and that's the last readout that you have. Now, unlike bigger airplanes and airliners, we don't have any call out from any of the radio altimeter numbers except for the 500. So we don't have the aircraft tell or say 2,500. We don't have that. We don't have the aircraft say 100, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. We don't have that. We only have the readout on the display in front of us with the radio altimeter, but we don't have a call out, an oral warning saying the radio altimeter call out, except for the 500 radio altimeter, which is an oral warning if you're on an RNAV approach, a visual approach, actually any approach other than ILS. The aircraft will say 500 when you're on 500 on any approach other than ILS. For the rest of the radio altimeter, 2,500, 1,000, 200, 100, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, we don't have an oral warning. So I guess this aircraft is equipped with a radio altimeter, I guess, but I don't think it gives any oral warnings except for that 500. If it's the same that the one in the 560, that is the Citation that I fly. Also, some photos were shared on social media from one of the passengers. It's actually, I think he was not a pilot. He was sitting in the right seat, and it's Daniel Williams. It was one of the persons on board, and he shared this aircraft. Then we have another photo shared on his Instagram account. The aircraft still shut down. Everything is off. And then we have another one with the aircraft light up, and we can see a little bit about the cockpit equipment. It's an old aircraft, but I would say it's really well equipped. We can see there we have a display, a GPS, maybe a Garmin, but it's definitely a GPS with a map. I'm sure it's able to load up approaches with the radio equipment also just underneath that display, and also some kind of GPS related display on the right side of it, probably with the waypoints for the route loading and approach loading, departure procedures maybe as well. So again, very unfortunate accident that we had. It hits close because it's when it's a corporate jet, it's something, especially with the Cessna Citation, which I'm very familiar with, it hits close. If you know further on this accident, if you want to give your opinions as well, or if you want to correct something that I said that is not right, or you have some more information, please do leave a comment here. It's the only purpose is to learn. Aviation is very safe, and it's because of these accidents, these tragedies, that we have to learn why. Were you in a very real rush to land in Montgomery? Couldn't you divert anywhere else? Did you consider all the options? When you departed Wichita, how was the weather in Montgomery? Because it was out of service. Why did you depart Wichita first? If you are in a 3-hour flight, cruising at 40,000 feet, chilling, checking the weather at destination, you don't have it, checking the weather nearby, it's so bad. Why did you continue on? Why didn't you turn around, go back to Wichita? This was a marine layer. It's very usual in the early mornings of California to have this weather. It's foggy, it's just fog. As soon as the sun rises and the ground starts gaining some temperature, this fog is going to dissipate. So just wait a few hours, just turn back around or not depart at all. But if you're already in the air, just turn back around, just wait a few hours, and that fog is going to dissipate at some point. We have to learn about it, and that's the only purpose of VASAviation, and also with these videos, and especially if it's a Cessna Citation or any other corporate jet, because it hits close. So again, hoping the preliminary report comes very soon. Leave all the information you have and any corrections that you have as well. And see you on the next one. Thank you.